Ah, hello, and good evening, good late evening to you. Had to start a few minutes late here because I had to restart my computer because there were things stuck on the Mac. The Mac's not getting any younger. Of course, neither am I. But good evening to you all, and I want to say welcome to the Quarter Hour with your old pal Sid Yiddish. And today's been kind of a ups and downs kind of day. I had to go to the city to grab something because I live in the suburbs, and the shop where I went to pick something up, um, the power went out, so there were like 10 security guards around the door, all telling me the same thing, yelling at me and telling me that the store was closed, and it's too bad. Come back tomorrow. That's how security people talk because they think you're going to jump in and take something for nothing from them. Maybe that's the case. Maybe they're just all paranoid. I don't know. But anyway, thought tonight we'd do something a little different. And if it appears my video is a little stuck and frozen, it's just because the computer just restarted and stuff. So I was going to try something different tonight. So a couple of things. I will pull a card from this deck. It's called the Age card. You too can play the Age card. You see, that's what it looks like. Oops, there we go. It's right there, I guess. And these are naughty cards. So this is the way I guess we'll start the show. I'll open this one up. Oh, that's a blank one. Okay. So this is the card that I pulled out, and it says, I don't know where I've been and don't know where I'm going, but I'm happy. And I hope that for some of you out there looking at this, maybe we do it this way. There we go. Better. That is the same way for you too. I don't know where I've been, don't know where I'm going, but I'm happy. And I'm happy to be here. And let's dive right into the poetry. And first one I really want to do is one of my own, and because I don't have all my papers up or my docs up in my apartment tonight on my computer here, because I usually have docs all over the screen. But since I just started, I can't. So I'd like to read this new one on my phone here. It's a little shiny, I know. I just wrote it a few days ago, and it's called Problem 19. Tops of cars shine like quarters I can't find on sidewalks, in pockets, stuffed inside jars. Worldwide crisis causes calamity, damage beyond legality, 6 months and counting. In a prior version, I used to spend down, and for now it's save up. We're all in this together. Be safe gives me such a social disintegration, distancing headache. I cannot resist the urge not to, and listen to the overwhelming drone it's become. There are no safety nets. There are no pills that automatically save our heritage. Scrape and scratch, a box of splintered, burnt-out matches, just shoved in a drawer, to be rekindled one day, once more. And I wrote this on August 14th. Hello, James. How are you? And so I'm going to read from this book that I've been reading for a while now. This is my friend Shane Bugby's book. It's called The Joys of Satanism. I can assure you I am not a Satanist, though I've eaten Satan before. That's Seitan. And so I'd like to do this first one. And this is with the number 4 card, see? So right now we're 4 as well. So this is called The cliff. Chasing the moon into a stream and the sun, up in a tree, the butterfly off the cliff, and the worm into a hole. And this is another one I'd like to do from his book. It's called Satanists Don't Have Problems. Satanists don't have problems. Satanists have solutions or acceptance of failure. Satanists have pushback, or Satanists push on. Problems for most are entertainment for the Satanist. So I'd like to go with this poem. Let me pull it up here. Just in case you've tuned in and you realize I'm a little bit late tonight. This is the Quarter Hour with Sid Yiddish. And pretty much what I've been doing has been juggling screens all day. Make sure we do things right here. We'll do a quick move to see if I can find this other one. Here we go. Okay, got it. All right. Sorry, I would have been more prepared. I know I've said sorry a billion times, but I really am. Sorry. So, you're good enough, James? Well, if you're good enough, then I'm happy. Okay, so this is let's see, it'll come up in a sec. There we go. Okay, so I'd like to read some poetry from my good friend Wes Hine, and this is from his book of poems he calls Sugar Skull. And this poem is called, it's going up a little bit, I'm sorry. I've said it, for every time I say sorry I can pay myself off, and I think I'm going to be okay. This one, this one is called Peach Schnapps. The first time I got drunk was when I found a plastic bottle of peach schnapps sitting in the parking lot of a bowling alley in Wisconsin. I was 13 and had a Metallica t-shirt for every day of the week. I pocketed it and called my friend Marcy on a payphone. It was 1997, and she walked over. We went to the graveyard, the only place the living could be alone in town, and sipped the sweet, flowery syrup. It tasted like peach bubble gum rather than real peaches. The sun was bright and hot. The rays went straight through my skull, as if God was touching my brain. I laughed and danced. Marcy rolled her eyes but smiled. As we walked down the sidewalk, I rubbed against the hedgerows. Yes, hedgerows. Sorry, Wes. And felt the leaves scratch against me. It was bliss to be young, high, and free. Everything was possible. All the young dreams were going to come true. I was wrong. I grew up to be a corporate drone like everyone else, and Marcy killed herself a few years ago. I've been getting drunk ever since that day in 1997, and I hate the taste of peach schnapps. Okay. And so now we've got one more poem, and then we're going to move on to my other little segment that we have. And this is another one by Shane Bugbee and his book called The Joys of Satanism. And this is a simple one, and it's called Satan's Name. The hardest part of taking Satan's name, commingling with those who use Satan as their scapegoat, their blame. Okay? So, I live on the North Shore. I live in the suburbs of Chicago. And in and on and around the North Shore. And if you're from the North Shore, they have this sort of like this thing called scapegoat and privilege and entitlement. They love blaming people for other things other than themselves. Entitlement includes things like you can't park on a particular street because it's their street and therefore they're entitled to it. And if you live on a different street, you're not allowed to park there, even if there's no sign that says so. That's an example of entitlement. I experienced that last year. And this is my own neighborhood where it's mostly hoity-toity mansions across the street, stuff like that. And so I have this little segment where each week I read from nextdoordigest.com, and it's pretty much what the privileged are thinking and the little complaints that they have about everything. So let's dive right into one of the ones that I opened. And so this one is called, this is by a person, the initials couldn't be more apropos. Her initials are BS. And BS says, unsafe choices in kids. The other day, 6 unmasked kids, one had a mask on his neck, were blocking the sidewalk in front of Starbucks on Central Street. I had to ask them to move so my friend and I could pass and said they shouldn't block the sidewalk. One started laughing and replied, where were they to move to? I told him he's smart and should figure it out as I kept walking. He then ran up to us and started coughing and laughing by me and ran back to his friends. Parents really need to make sure their kids know and, most importantly, comply with safety precautions for themselves and others in times of the coronavirus. Very upsetting that this happened and the very bad choice that one kid made. Choosing to take action against safety protocol can mean the difference of life and death for some among us. And, of course, there's something like 190 responses to this thing. And I'm only going to read you a few of them. You should try and go to nextdoor.com in your own cities, because I think you'll find a lot of this stuff, this complaining stuff is very amusing. So this one, so from SRC. Unfortunately, so many posts wind up like this one. Nastiness has become common, and I think we all know why this is happening. And then PG says, Poppy says, I love treats and hugs and belly rubs. And then this one. LV says, I believe that if you want respect or to be respected, you need to do 2 things. Respect yourself and respect others. I think that is what PM is saying. We should respect each other. With COVID-19, or without it, we should respect each other. I do not think it's that difficult. I would wear a mask or keep my distance so that I know I am safe and the other person is safe. Yes, we are both human. We are alive, most likely healthy, and maybe we have family and friends that we do not want them to be at risk. If the other person thinks like that, then everything is okay. Respect from both sides. Easy when you respect yourself and respect the other person, and the other person respects her, himself, and respects you. Think about it. And then somebody said, CT says it's called unsubscribe. And sorry, the drag is bad tonight. Okay, so basically the idea is what people are telling them is stop complaining and just do whatever. Don't try to post here for attention. I mean, if it bothers you that badly, go out and do something about it and quit your bitching, which is what most people do here on the North Shore, is complain, complain, complain. So I'll go to another one, and this one is a little bit, I don't think it's as bad. Okay. Oh yeah, this one. Okay. So this one has 59 remarks, not as heavy as 190. I think it's depends on the emotion that people put into stuff. Uh, so JR of Willard says, be careful in stores. Unfortunately, all the negative comments Jewel on Skokie Boulevard received a couple of weeks ago didn't do much good. In the parking lot today, I witnessed an unmasked employee let out a hefty sneeze right over a collection of shopping carts. And I think basically what they're doing is they're just bitching, bitching, bitching. If people would just stop bitching and you just stop bitching and do something about it instead of complaining like a bunch of children, to their teacher or something, I think we'd get along fine. So some of the comments include, LC, this is how police states start, turning on people and get government involved. And then JMC says, not wearing a mask and correctly is exactly the same as waving a loaded gun around in public. Keep up the petulant teenager-like resistance, and police states will start to appeal to more and more people. And CT says, yeah, we stopped going to Jewel in April because of this. Okay, I've been to that Jewel actually, and it's not a terrible Jewel at all. People, as I say, like to complain about everything and nothing in this town, and especially on the North Shore. And again, it's just a bunch of crybabies. All right, so crybaby, crybaby. Off we go. So this is book time, and I've got a lot of books in the docket in the pile today, and so I love kids' books. I just really like them. I don't know why. I just have an affinity for them. So I am going to read this one This one's called Frog and Toad Are Friends. It's by Arnold Lobel. It's this one right here. I'll try to read a couple of them, but since we went a little bit late, I'm going to try to go a little bit late myself. But yes, sir. I don't have any Dr. Seuss in the house right now, but I will. I'll make it a point to get some. So this is called Spring. Frog ran up the path to Toad's house. He knocked on the front door. There was no answer. "Toad, Toad," shouted Frog. "Wake up, it is spring." "Blah," said a voice from inside. "Toad, Toad," cried Frog. "The sun is shining, the snow is melting. Wake up." "I am not here," said the voice. See, you can see there. They still have snow on the roof. Frog walked into the house. It was dark. All the shutters were closed. "Toad, where are you?" called Frog. "Go away," said the voice from a corner of the room. Toad was lying in bed. He had pulled all the covers over his head. Frog pushed Toad out of bed. He pushed him out of the house and onto the front porch. Toad blinked in the bright sun. "Help," said Toad. "I cannot see anything." "Don't be silly," said Frog. "What you see is the clear, warm light of April, and it means that we can begin a whole new year together, Toad." "Think of it," said Frog. "We will skip through the meadows and run through the woods and swim in the river. In the evenings we will sit right here on the front porch and count the stars." "You can count them, Frog," said Toad. "I will be too tired. I am going back to bed." Toad went back into the house. He got back into the bed and pulled the covers over his head again. "But Toad," cried Frog, "you will miss all the fun." "Listen, Frog," said Toad. "How long have I been asleep?" "You have been asleep since November," said Frog. "Well then," said Toad, "a little more sleep will not hurt me. Come back again and wake me up about 1/2 May. Good night, Frog." "But Toad," said Frog, "I will be lonely until then." Toad did not answer. He had fallen asleep. Frog looked at Toad's calendar. The November page was still on top. Frog tore off the November page. He tore off the December page, and the January page, and the February page, and the March page. He came to the April page. Frog tore off the April page too. Then Frog ran back to Toad's bed. "Toad, Toad, wake up, it is May now." "What?" said Toad. "Can it be May so soon?" "Yes," said Frog. "Look at your calendar." Toad looked at the calendar. The May page was on top. "Why, it is May," said Toad as he climbed out of bed. Then he and Frog ran outside to see how the world was looking in the spring. And that's how it looked to them in the spring. Of course, this picture here. Of course, we know how it looked in the spring here. Pretty bad, eh? So, one last one, and then I will close it up for tonight. So it's called The Story. One day in summer, Frog was not feeling well. "Toad," said Frog, "you are looking quite green." "But I always look green," said Frog. "I am a frog. Today you look very green, even for a frog," said Toad. "Get into my bed and rest." Toad made Frog a cup of hot tea. Frog drank the tea, and then he said, "Tell me a story while I am resting." "All right," said Toad. "Let me think of a story to tell you." Toad thought and thought, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. "I will go out onto the front porch and walk up and down," said Toad. "Perhaps that will help me to think of a story." Toad walked up and down on the porch for a long time, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. Check it out. I don't know why it is that all frogs look like Kermit the Frog, but he definitely looks like Kermit the Frog. Then Toad went into the house and stood on his head. "Why are you standing on your head?" asked Frog. "I hope that if I stand on my head, it will help me to think of a story," said Toad. Toad stood on his head for a long time, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. Then Toad poured a glass of water over his head. Why are you pouring water over your head? Asked Frog. I hope that if I pour water over my head, it will help me to think of a story, said Toad. Toad poured many glasses of water over his head, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. Then Toad began to bang his head against the wall. Why are you banging your head against the wall? Asked Frog. I hope that if I bang my head against the wall hard enough, it will help me to think of a story, said Toad. I am feeling much better now, Toad, said Frog. I do not think I need a story any more. Then you get out of bed and let me get into it, said Toad, because now I feel terrible. Frog said, Would you like me to tell you a story, Toad? Yes, said Toad, if you know one. Once upon a time, said Frog, there were two good friends, a frog and a toad. The frog was not feeling well. He asked his friend the toad to tell him a story. The toad could not think of a story. He walked up and down on the porch, but he could not think of a story. He stood on his head, but he could not think of a story. He poured water over his head, but he could not think of a story. He banged his head against the wall, but he could not think of a story. Then Toad did not feel so well, and the frog was feeling better. So the toad went to bed, and the frog got up and told him a story. The end. How was that, Toad? Said Frog. But Toad did not answer. He had fallen asleep. You see? Okay. And we are now at the second quarter hour. It is 7:30 Central Standard Time. And show is pretty much complete. So, again, you've been listening for the last perhaps 29 and a half minutes to the quarter hour with Sid Yiddish. I do read poetry, and if you want me to read your poetry, please send it to me, DM me, or if you have my email address, send it to me, or if you have my phone number, call me. So this is Sid Yiddish saying a good night to you, those of you who are in the evening hours. Good morning to those of you who are in the morning, and good afternoon for those of you in Alaska. I'll say good night to you. And yes, and so right. Hey, Mark, and and with that, I want to say good night, and go watch that Democratic National Convention. You might learn something tonight. We'll see you soon. See you next week. Bye-bye for now.